assistant to the UW president when he retired 3 years ago. He also served for 16 years in the Wyoming State Legislature. So welcome, Mike.
Okay, I was asked, I apologize if Nancy's already said this, I was already reading some of the questions and I didn't hear everything that she was mentioning. But in the back is a flyer from the city talking about where you can and cannot put campaign signs up. And if you put them where you cannot, the city is going to take them down. So especially for candidates, you might want to pick that up on the way out, but for other folks, you might want to pick it up too, especially if you're thinking about hosting a sign. Let's see. We got a full boat here tonight. All the folks who are running for city council are with us tonight. Thank you for being here. And I think I'm going to go down the line so that you'll know who is, that you'll know who is running in your particular part of Laramie. And if you need to know what ward you're living in, the map is right over there, dividing it down between, I assume that's it, Ward 1, 2, and 3. Those lines don't look quite right, so that may not be the, oh, there it is. It's the one next to it there. Yeah. So in Ward 1, which is essentially West Laramie, the west side, the business district, and some of the residential areas off the business district to the east, is Ward 1. And we have two different positions in Ward 1 that are being competed for. The first one is for a 2-year term. It's to fill out an unexpired term. And Victor Bershinsky and Brian Harrington, our first two folks here, are running for that position. The next one is a regular 4-year term in Ward 1. And Jessica Stalder and Andy Somerville are running for that particular seat. Next the next three folks are running in Ward 3. Ward 3 essentially is everything east of 15th Street with a couple of exceptions. And you'll notice the exceptions over there. In running in Ward 3, Brian Schuster, Carl McCracken, and Aaron O'Doherty. And finally, down the very end is our middle guy. Running in Ward 2 is Paul Weaver. And of course, Ward 2 fits in between 1 and 3. So that's probably not very clear, but again, check the map if you want to know exactly which wards we're going to be talking about tonight. And you know what I'm going to also do to make it a little bit easier for you to track the responses of the candidates in your part of Laramie is I'm going to vary every time we have a new question. I'll start with a new individual to begin the responses. And we'll go all the way around to where everybody has had a chance to respond. I'll chart with somebody new. But I would like for all the folks in that particular ward to respond to the question as a group. So for instance, the most complicated one would be, say, Ward 3. So if I were to toss the question first to Brian, then Aaron and Carl would have a chance to talk and respond to that question after Brian before passing it down the road there to Paul. So regardless of where I start, if everybody in that particular ward that's competing for that position could answer first before we pass it on. I'm going to consolidate the questions as much as possible. If this holds the forum, I'm going to get more questions, many more questions than I could possibly ask. So what I'll try to do is to consolidate them. So at least part of your question will be asked. And you don't have to go home empty-handed or at least not have your concern addressed. But again, we're going to stop at 8:30. And so you'll have a chance to talk to the candidates in your ward one-on-one if you didn't get your question answered, or if you wanted to follow up, if it wasn't clear, what their stance might be. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. The first question is give each of the candidates, and we'll start with Victor. We'll give each of the candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves and to answer the basic question: why are you running for the city council?
Hello, I'm Victor Brzezinski, running for City Council. Because I've been a lifelong resident, love Laramie. I think we have a lot of attributes that are wonderful, and I'd just like to see a few improvements made that have been lingering over the years. Things such as our infrastructure, the way Laramie handles new businesses, how we work about attracting new businesses and building on our economic growth, and also a few quality of life issues such as snow removal, mosquito control, the city dump, things that I think there's some low-hanging fruit out there that I think needs some attention that we can accomplish tomorrow and make Laramie a better place.
Hello everybody. First, I want to start just by thanking the League of Women Voters and the Public Library for hosting this event this evening, and thank the rest of my candidates for sitting down and doing this. It's a little scary, so thank them all for being here to share their vision of the future. My name is Brian Harrington. I'm a small business owner, and I'm running for City Council because I believe that the next generation needs a seat at the table when we're crafting Laramie's future. I grew up in northern Wyoming, in a place with not a lot of opportunity. My community was really isolated, and the economy was sort of always circling the drain. My parents worked really hard to support us kids, but never really seemed to get ahead. 7 years ago, I decided to start my business here in Laramie. I did this with a small loan from my parents that they gave me against the equity on my childhood home. This was a huge risk for me. I knew that there wasn't going to be a second chance at this. But as I worked to build this business here in Laramie, it became clear quickly that this is a special community. I found the connections that led to the support I needed to be successful. So I'm running because I want to ensure that anyone can find the same support and these same opportunities. I'm running because as Laramie grows, it's crucial that we do it in the right way and that we all grow together. I'm dedicated to building a future for Laramie where all of our residents have equal access to the economy, community, and to opportunity. I believe in a Laramie that, I have to stop. Thank you, everyone.
Why are you running for City Council is the question that everyone asks. And I think that's a question that everyone should ask themselves when they come up with something that they believe in. And for me, the thing that I believe in is the future prosperity of our city. I'm raising my son here, and I want him to stay, and I want him to enjoy it as much as I do, and live here like my parents do and my grandparents do. And I think there's two reasons that people run for political office. The first reason is that they're crazy and they want to be politicians. That's not me. The second is they're fed up with something and they want to offer their time and energy to make it better. And that's me. I think Laramie is facing some serious financial and infrastructure issues, and we need to adjust our course. I'm running for City Council because I think we need to make better decisions, and I can do that. Right now I work in healthcare administration, and it's complicated. I became a nurse for a simple reason, and it's because I like people and I love people. I love taking care of people. But I went back to UW to get my business degree because decision making is not simple. Every day, every decision that I make starts from my heart, from a place of service and wanting to care for people. But I also know how to navigate that complicated minefield of making sure that we're compliant with regulations. And making sure that we can generate enough revenue to keep taking care of people. And I think a lot of the same principles apply to City Council. So, thank you so much.
So my name is Andy Somerville, and I currently sit on the City Council. I've had about 5 years. I was first appointed and then ran in 2014 in my first election, and so I'm running again for a second term. And I'm doing that for several reasons. I think that the city of Laramie has come through one of the worst financial challenges that we've had in recent times with the state decrease in money. And we've really had to shrink everything down and really look at what we're doing in our programs. At the same time, we're starting to see some wonderful momentum in dealing with some of the issues that I think are most critical to everybody that's in this community. I think infrastructure is one of my biggest topics that I spent time talking about. And with the passage of the sixth penny, we are in a position right now to make the single biggest investment in infrastructure, specifically in streets and drainage, that Laramie has ever made. And if anybody drives on these streets, you know that it's desperately needed all over town. I want to make sure that the city is concentrating on our future and innovation, and we're going to do that through entrepreneurship and getting those businesses here, helping people start them and making them work for everybody. This community needs to be a community for all. We need to make sure that everybody, whether it's youth, students, workforce, our senior population, that they have access to the amenities and the services that they need. And I think Laramie has always been a leader in the state, and I want to continue on that mission.
Okay, I'm Carl McCracken, and I've been here for 39 years in Laramie, so Mike Massey has 1 year on me. And the reason I point that out is that having the history and knowing what's going on, I've always been involved in business of one sort or another. I think it's important because you do need the history. The average person lasts very long, very short here. I am third generation Wyoming, so I know a lot of people in Cheyenne, also Fort Collins. But my wife is fifth generation Laramie, which is unheard of. But the thing is that right now we need to generate more money, and the 6-cent tax, the 5-cent tax, the 4-cent tax, it all comes into play. And one of the things we really need to do is make sure that we're business friendly. And I was on council before when the UDC passed and a few other things, and we need to become more business friendly because a lot of businesses are passing us by. You go to places like Cheyenne and those, they have an advantage for 50,000 because that's a special government threshold. We don't meet that threshold. We also, students, they come in and do their studies, and they find that we don't have a lot of money. So we need to sit there and make it affordable to build so that we get more businesses in here, more jobs in here. We had 225 employees at one place I was at. We were the largest private employer, and we hired a lot of university students. And they got through with very little debt.
Erin O'Doherty. I'm running for City Council because I feel like I can bring a different perspective as a scientist. I studied aquatic ecology and also wildlife ecology, and then I'm the co-owner of an engineering firm, so I've read a lot of plans and learned a lot about infrastructure. I also built a house with my own hands, and so I'm pretty rooted here. I'm not going away. And so I really love this community, the physical space, and mostly the humans here. And so I would like to contribute on City Council and care about growing business. I'd like to really retain the businesses that we have here. Like, it broke my heart when In Situ left. So I'd like to keep the businesses, which I think a lot of them grow from our intellect with the university town. I'd like to keep them in Laramie.
Thank you. I'm Brian Schuster. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the library. It's great that they've done this. This is, I think, my third time I've done this. I'm trying for my fourth city council position. I'm a longtime resident, but I will say I was not born in the state. My parents brought me here when I was in grade school. So I went to grade school, the junior high, the senior high, all here in Laramie, have watched us grow. There's been a huge amount of changes. There are nights you leave city council just feeling you've done the greatest job in the world, and there's nights you leave city council going, why the heck did we even have a meeting? So we need to become more business friendly. We need to retain jobs. I have 3 kids that have grown up, attended the university here, and left. I'm tired of seeing that. I'm really tired of seeing that. We need good, well-paying jobs. It starts everywhere. We lost Kmart. Probably not the best paying job here, but it was a big retail store. We're losing retail stores every month here. And I'm tired of seeing them leaving. We need to become more business friendly and start attracting them. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I also want to thank, of course, the League and the library and all of you for spending your Thursday night going to a City Council Forum. I have often made a little joke that serving on the City Council should be a little bit like jury duty. It should rotate. It's not something that everybody wants to do, but I am willing to do it, and I served before, and I declined to run for re-election, and I didn't expect to be back here, but I'm committed to serving on the City Council again and doing the best job that I can. I remain interested in where we're going to be as a community in 10, 20, and 30 years. I've lived here in Laramie 21 years myself. I think every Wyoming community has some unique attributes and strengths, as well as deficits. Laramie has its own flavor and feeling that suits me pretty well, and I think my neighbors and the rest of us that live here. And I'm interested in developing our potential and building on our strengths, because I think we do have those. I think oftentimes we want to focus on the things that are not going very well, as opposed to some of the things that we have to build on. I want to do that. But I want to do that in a way that doesn't radically alter the things that make us enjoy Laramie so much. I think it's going to take a lot of work. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I do think we can do it. And I want to be part of that process moving forward. And I think I can bring both some experience, having been on there before. There's some mistakes that I won't be making again, I hope. And also still bringing a perspective that's fresh enough on a few topics that maybe we can be creative with problem solving.
Thank you. We're off to a good start here, other than the microphones. So I think this one may have... Oh, I just got to turn it on. We're off to a good start, except for the moderator. Here's the next question, and we'll start with Carl. And some of you have already started to address this, so you can continue doing so. What do you believe is the primary issue facing the city of Laramie, and what are you going to do about it?
If I have to pick one issue, there's quite a few of them out there, but it's money. And in order to get money, you have to have businesses, you have to have places to raise the money, you have to maybe make cutbacks. You have to be able to balance a budget. And I can say it, I'm probably going to go 92nd, but the full time, because it's so simple. Because it is money, and I was a CPA at one time, and that's probably where my focus is there so much, but money, budgets, and that's it. That's about all I can say.
I guess the primary issue for me is water, because it's what we need to live, and it's scarce in the West. So we have to really protect our water resources. I thought that water treatment was settled science, that you just run it through certain filters and all that was figured out, but I've learned from my daughter, who just got a degree in engineering, that so much of it depends on what the incoming water is like, and there's some things that you just can't get out of the water unless they go through biological systems over a very long time, like nitrates. And so I think we have to really protect our water, because we can't exist as a community without it. And there's also the water flowing off of our streets and into our rivers, and we need to keep that clean and not have storm drainage problems in our streets.
Thank you. I'm going to say money is number one, probably water is number two. But right now, the state had a big, big boom in energy. Most of it was coal. And when that went down, we get shared revenue from the state. So they reduced our allotment by a bunch. We only had to lay off one person. But through natural attrition, we had 13 people leave. So our staff is down 13 people now. And it's all because of less revenue coming in. So I'm going to say revenue's number one. Do we want to have clean water? Yes, we want to have clean water. I sit on the Pilot Hill Peak Committee. If we get done what we want to, we'll be buying over 5,000 acres over the top of the Casper Aquifer, where the recharge areas, the main recharge areas are. If we get the Pilot Hill Peak project done, there will be no motor vehicles. There'll be people hiking, horseback, and bicycling. That's it. So if we can get that project done, we will help ourselves tremendously in water. Thank you. They say to you, Paul?
We're going this way?
We're going this
But I'm
way.
not done, okay. I think what you'll hear probably from everyone up here is a struggle to try to pick one topic. That's a really tough question, because I think one of the things that's really difficult is how Laramie's challenges intersect and are interrelated. We talk about the water. Well, that's related to, yes, a public safety issue, and also a quality of life issue. And we also talk about the need for economic progress. I'm being told that I need to lift the microphone. I always think I have a really loud voice, but maybe it's not as loud as I think. So the question is, what's the one thing? It's not. I'm going to answer, it's not one thing. It's how we manage the interrelations of the challenges that Laramie faces, and how we are able to try to work to come up with solutions for those challenges. And I'm going to echo that I think economic development and water protection are certainly there, but also infrastructure maintenance. That's really what we're talking about when we talk about money, is how we're going to use the money in the city, how we're going to manage those strained resources, those limited resources, to make sure that we don't have a decline in services and quality of life for the residents. That's at the top of my list, and it's going to be hard.
All right, I'm hearing a lot of the same answers here. Money and infrastructure are the two big concerns that I have, and I hear over and over from the people when I knock on the door. Our roads are in disrepair. Our water and sewer is a crumbling system, aged system. We seem to have a management policy of just fixing the latest squeaky wheel. We need a long-term plan to fix that. What's the solution? The solution is the city has got to grow. The city has got to attract more large retailers. They have to be a more business-friendly environment. They can't be obstructionist to new businesses coming in. We need to work with businesses cooperatively and not just rely on a big box store coming in to fix all our problems. We can't make the upfront cost on these new potential businesses so high that they choose not to come here. And so that is going to go a long way towards helping our money income. And then we need a long-term plan on how to apply that money effectively to our infrastructure. As Brian said, we've had layoffs. I think the city is running really lean as it is, and I've heard that from city employees as well as city management, that we're pretty lean as it is and doing a good job with what we have. We just need more of it.
So I think this question is probably a question that a lot of communities, especially communities of our size, are all dealing with at the same time. I don't think this is unique to Laramie, but what I really see as the main issue facing Laramie is how do we stay competitive in a quickly changing world? So, that could include things like, how do we provide clean water? How do we provide a vibrant economy that gives people in a younger generation the opportunity to stay in Laramie? Those are all things that are changing quickly. So I think the number one challenge that we're going to face, and it's probably going to be the challenge that we face now for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years, is how do we continue to stay competitive in this world? So, I think one of those ways is by approaching any economic development or diversity holistically, so that what we're actually attempting to do is to make higher quality of life, so this is a more desirable city to live in, so that you want to stay here so bad that you're willing to fight for a job. So as long as we can figure out how to remain competitive in a quickly changing world, I think we have at least some hope.
Do that with this time.
I don't think that there's one issue that we can identify as the biggest issue, and I think that'll be a different issue in a year or 5 years or 10 years. What I think the biggest issue is, and what I can do about it, is think about how we use our resources, because they're limited. Whether that resource is financial or environmental, or I think our greatest resource is people. we need to look at what we can do to effectively use those resources. So instead of identifying a specific issue, although I think there are a lot of them, and I have my own ideas about what is most important, but I think as a city councilwoman, it's not about me. It's about the issues that are important to the community. And our job on city council is to figure out how we can use our limited resources effectively to respond, in a well thought out and strategic manner, using our resources. And what city council needs to do is come up with a process of how to use those resources, and that process needs to be transparent, and it needs to bring all the stakeholders to the table, no matter what the issue is, whether that's clean water or budget. Everybody that's involved needs to be at the table and to sort out how to use our resources in the most efficient way.
So I'm going to echo a lot of what's already been said. The number one issue facing Laramie right now is revenue, because you need revenue to address any of those other issues. Quality of life, streets, water, PD, fire. You have to be able to pay for basic services. And right now, Laramie is in a position where we really can't pay for basic services that our residents expect. They expect when they call 911 that the police and the fire will show up. And we are right there right now. We run the leanest and most fiscally conservative city in Wyoming because we have to. And right now, the revenue structures that we have as a city are very, very old. The tax structure is built for an economy 60, 70 years ago, and so we have to work within that. In terms of Wyoming, cities have the least fiscal autonomy in terms of developing their own revenue and controlling their destiny of any state in the United States. Sounds a little strange for Wyoming. So what I have been doing to work to address this problem is I spend a large amount of time, and I do mean a large amount of time, volunteering to go over and talk with our federal delegation to free up more grant money. That has worked this year. We were able to put in an application for a build grant that we've never been able to do. I spent a tremendous amount of time with the Wyoming Association of Municipalities advocating to the state legislature and working with them to free up state money, more grants, more programs, new diversified revenue sources, so that we can bring that money home. It all comes back to money. And just to put it in comparison for you, a sister city in Wyoming, which will remain nameless, of approximately the same size, we run on a quarter of their budget.
Okay, thank you. Here's the next question. And we'll start with Jessica Stolber on this one. What is your stand on increasing city taxing authority from the state? And if the city received it, would you use it?
Sorry, I'm just writing down the question.
Did you want me to repeat it?
That would be awesome.
Okay. You got the microphone, so I'll holler. No, that's all right. Go ahead. What is your stand on increasing city taxing authority from the state? And if the city received it, would you use it?
I think anytime that we're talking about taxes, it's really important to think about, where the money is coming from. So this is a good question. Would you use it? And I think if the city was receiving tax money from the state, it's important that we have a clear process in place to identify how we're going to spend the money. Increasing taxes of any kind at the city level or the state level is going to impact business. And when you impact businesses through taxation, goods and services are more expensive. And then you're looking at retail leakage to Colorado possibly, or online retailers. So that's a complicated issue. It's not as simple as getting money from the state. We got to look at that from all the different angles.
So I can just repeat a portion of my last answer. Yes, I'm in favor of local taxing options coming to municipalities. We need to be like every other state in the United States and be able to have actual, real local decision making at the local level. If the city council looks at revenue and they think, okay, we need revenue to do this, we need to increase public safety because we're having issues with alcohol use amongst college students in Laramie, let's put an added beer tax on the ballot for the voters. That is local, true local decision making, and we don't have that authority right now. And I'm very much in favor of bringing that to Laramie in any form. I think that if you present a good process, and we do have a good process, we go through a very transparent public budgeting process that outlines where every single penny in this city is spent. That process already exists, it's well used, it's always available. You can go through any budget piece of the city that you want to right now. And if you have a good reason for it and you take it out to the voters are smart. They're going to make a good decision, and if you make a good argument about why we need it, I think the rest of it speaks for itself. The 6 penny passed with an 80% approval. That's never happened before. I think that's because we put a good case to the residents here in Laramie about what we need, and we need to be able to do that with more local autonomy here.
I like that. What Andy said, I think the local autonomy as far as taxation authority should be granted by the state. We have a unique set of problems here when it comes to dealing with the University of Wyoming and how much of the load that they place on the city, how much of that they help support and how much of it they don't help support. I think something like a sin tax, a beer tax or something along those lines to help with the increased police presence that we need for that, the increased fire and rescue that we need for that, and the tax that it places on our infrastructure too. We have a lot of residents here that are living well below probably the poverty level or any measurable level of economic income when you're talking about students. And so, I mean, we don't want to place too heavy of a burden on them, but they certainly need to, or we certainly need to find a way for the university in general to help carry the load. I don't think any new taxes should go without public approval. I think it's got to be open, honest, transparent what the money's going to go for. But I think the people of Laramie are very reasonable when it comes to that. They understand that we're underfunded for various reasons, and I think they would be supportive of that.
So I'm in favor of anything that unties our hands from the state's control right now as far as generating our own revenue, and certainly would use that money. Because our city has such a hard time generating revenue and we have such a small budget, anything that we can do to take control for ourselves, I think really frees us to think creatively and try to solve some of these bigger problems that we're all talking about this evening.
Okay, about 9 years ago, they did, legislature passed an act where a city can sit there and if they wanted to do all the stuff in West Laramie, they could do it and put it on the property taxes of the people in West Laramie. Then the people of West Laramie would have to get the votes together to undo it. Now, that's never been tested in any city. It's never been anything like that, but it's already out there. And that's one of those things that it's a possibility. Do I think we should? I don't have the problem with the availability of new taxes or new income revenue streams, provided that the voters vote on it. I don't want it just to be the city councilors that vote on it.
I think Laramie is a very generous community, as indicated by the tax, the 5th penny and 4th, all the pennies. I think if we had more access to the original cut, that if it were a steady stream instead of so much being held back from the state, it wouldn't be necessary. But if the voters want to approve a 7th penny, I would, say, heck yes. We have crumbling infrastructure because of delayed maintenance on our sewer system and our, not as much the water system, but we have a lot of deferred maintenance, and that just gets more and more expensive the longer you defer it. So if we have access to some dollars to make those repairs before they become critical in the middle of winter, that would be great.
Thank you. The last 6 penny before this one was completely for our portion. We have to split it 3 ways. Town of Rock River, County, Albany County, and Laramie. Does Laramie get the biggest portion? Yes, they do. We're all in Albany County, and I want to remind that Albany County gets a portion too. But we used a lot of that for infrastructure for sewer and water, and we did a great job with it. And now this time, we are applying 22 million for streets, curb, gutter, water off that. Now, we also voted in recently, we had a new high school, and we voted in a property mill tax. And that'll come off, and I can't remember, I think it's 8 more years, but it paid for the additional upgrades to the high school. So can we bring on certain taxes? Yes, we can for certain projects. Could we do an alcohol tax? Could we try to approve a 7th penny? Yes. But just like some other people said, 100% decided by the voters, not by City Council. 100% decided by the voters of Laramie. And I will support whatever they want to do. Thank you.
Well, you're not going to hear much different from me on that topic. Local voters should be able to decide if they want to increase sales taxes in their local communities. I agree with that. I also agree with the notion that the voters should know exactly what the dollars are going to be used for before they're asked whether or not they want to make a decision to tax themselves any more, any higher. I think there's a bigger problem, though. Sales taxes are regressive. That's one problem I have with them, and a never-ending push to generate more and more revenue through sales taxes doesn't sit well with me, although I understand we need the revenue. But I also think they don't truly address the long-term structural revenue problems in Laramie and Albany County. It's only going to generate so much revenue here. You know, we're not making a lot of big dollar sales in Laramie and Albany County. So we have a statewide revenue challenge, I think, and that's outside of our jurisdiction. The council has a pretty limited say. So I'm trying to be optimistic about how our legislature faces these challenges in the coming years. I don't think it should all be on the local voters to endlessly pass sales taxes on themselves so that the water and the sewer systems are functioning.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our next question, and we'll start with Aaron on this one. And again, if all 3 of the folks in Ward 3 would answer the question before passing it on to Paul. So here's the question. How are the University of Wyoming and city government working together? And is there room for improvement, or what can they do better to improve Laramie's economy and overall quality of life?
Well, since I don't work for the university anymore, I feel more free to say whatever I want. But I have to say that I was pleased at the work session, the City Council work session, to see the president of the university speaking to the City Council and trying to work together. I was really happy that when the legislature tried to mandate or push closing 15th Street, and everybody in Laramie was pretty much opposed to that, I think the city and the university worked well together. I think that there could be improvements. I'd like to see more town and gown cooperation as far as, well, for one thing, increasing access to voting on campus. We have the highest population of young people, newly registered voters, if they could be, and we don't have access, a way for candidates to talk to them, for example, not easily. So, but I feel like the students should be more involved in their city, and so I would like to have an opportunity to represent students in the city council, even though, you know, I'm older than they are, but I have kids that were recent graduates.
Thank you. We get along great. Most things we do with them are above board. We don't hide anything from them. The only thing I'm going to use the word dislike is they pay 0 property taxes. That's 20% of the city of Laramie that doesn't pay a dime in property tax. We sold some property to LCCC and we gave them a discount on it, and in turn, they allow us to have our city employees go to so many credit hours a year, and we make it so that it's related to their field. We don't let them go get a degree in something else, that we're gonna actually have them work towards something that'll improve them as an employee. And I would love to see something like that in exchange for the university. But yes, we get along fine and we don't hide anything from each other.
For me at least, this is a fairly easy question. There's lots of complications, but it is a fairly easy question because where would the town be without the university? If you got rid of 12,000 students and you also got rid of 3,000 to 5,000 employees, some of which do make reasonable money for the Laramie, Wyoming. In fact, it's good money for Laramie, Wyoming. This town would be a completely different town. We might be another Rollins. And if you want to quote me over there, my family just sold the paper there, so they would appreciate that, I'm sure. But the thing is that each town is different. Each one has its own type of feeling. And personally, I think we get along very well. When I was on council, we got along well. There were a couple times where they got on my nerves, but that's fine, we worked it out. It was very minor. But without the university, we have to work together. And I think they do work together fairly well.
Yes, I think usually we're on the same team with the university. I'd never argue that there was no room for improvement. I think we can always keep trying to have a better and more cooperative relationship with them. I don't think it's incredibly problematic. I think inevitably there are going to be instances where we have a dispute with them or a disagreement, but I think traditionally we've been able to sit down with administrators and folks that we have to work with at UW to hammer out agreements. So I think we'll keep doing that. And I think it's always on the minds of the City Council to try to have the best and most beneficial relationship with UW that we can have.
As a 24-year employee of the university and a graduate, both undergraduate and graduate degree, I think it's critical that we have a good city/university relationship. The university's us, and we are the university. A lot of our city members work there. It provides most of our tax base. The tourism, the income that we get from football weekends, from basketball games, from other university events is probably measurable. I don't know what that number is, but that's a huge boon to the community. Anything the city can do to leverage those events and make them bigger, attract more people to town for homecoming weekends and football weekends and basketball games and other university events is great. And I think boosting that tourism is a great thing, but also the young people that graduate with the great ideas. I think the city needs to work with the entrepreneurial spirit of the university and work with people willing to build up businesses out of there. Places like Tri-Hydro that were spawned out of university students. Bright Agritech, even though they're leaving us to an extent. That's a great example of a win. And lots of smaller consulting type businesses that have spawned out of the university. The city needs to be as open and receptive to that as we can.
So I would echo a lot of the things that have been said. I think that the university and the city do have a functional relationship with one another. It is complex. The fact that they are a major employer, as I said, 20% of town, but they also don't pay taxes. So we have this increase of population without support to provide infrastructural improvements and things like that from them. But I think at the same time, we have to exist together. There's no Laramie without the university and no university without Laramie. So I think we really have to work cooperatively and continue building a relationship. I don't think we're ever going to have a perfect relationship, so as long as we're all diligent about it, I think it can be successful for all of us.
I just want to share kind of a personal experience that I've had both as a student and as a businesswoman. I've been on both sides of this. I know the College of Business at the university does some really cool partnerships with local businesses where they set up mentoring, and you can get UW students to maybe do a marketing campaign in return for that mentorship. I think that's the kind of thing we really need to capitalize on. And we are, the town and gown partnership is really important. But the city and the university need each other. Laramie, I think, is truly enriched culturally because of the university. And the university needs a community that can support its needs. It's a big employer and it brings a lot of resources, in tourism and sales tax revenue. And the city of Laramie needs to make sure they're really capitalizing on that partnership in a financial way. President Nichols has set a vision for growth for the university, and City Council needs to keep up with that. And we need to be the community that supports the university. We have a lot to benefit just from the talented people, the cultural programs. The entrepreneurship program is very close to my heart. And I think Laramie can capitalize on that retail and entertainment opportunities, sporting events and things like that. The best way to do this is to get everybody at the table. We need the trustees and the president coming to city council meetings. We need city council involved in university politics so that we're all working together towards the same objective.
So since I get the opportunity to go last, I'm going to be kind of specific about what I think is working well and what I think there's still room for. So since I have been mayor since January of last year, I frequently meet with President Nichols and other departments. I frequently talk with the trustees. I presented to the Board of Trustees meeting on behalf of the city several times, including the 15th Street conversation. They are now more involved in the city and the city council, I think, than they have ever been. We formed the Laramie Town Gown Association. We have all the public safety officials sitting down with our prevention people every single month, no matter what, talking about off-campus student issues and any other thing that might be related to public safety. That's never happened before. We work really well in parks and recreation. For anybody who wants to talk about parking in Laramie, the university is starting their parking and transit study, and they're doing it cooperatively with the city. We're there together at the table, and that is really, really important. I think some of the things that we can work on is just working on capturing the revenue better from the events that the university brings to the city. We need to look at that and be creative, I think, and think outside of the box. We need to continue to work together on infrastructure projects, whether it's the rebuilding of Ivinson Street in front of the university that's desperately needed, or housing. If anybody has seen a news article about housing and the new UWYO dorms, or not, we'll see. That's a critical partnership that the city needs to continue to be involved in, and we are in that conversation. We need to make sure that we stay in that conversation. The single most important thing to me is, beyond me being mayor or a council member, is building those relationships with the university that outlast the person that's in the seat.
Perhaps that'd be a way to raise some money, is the city can have a raffle on what the dorms will spell out from the air. Well, those who are last shall be first. Andy, this one's for you.
Okay.
Should the dirt roads in Laramie be paved, and how would that be financed?
How do we pay for them? I'd like to request about 20 minutes for this, if I could. So I'm a West Laramie council member. I've lived out there for 16 years. I happen to live on a paved street now, but I didn't always. Yes, we need to improve the roads out there. It has to happen. It's beyond time. We've seen presentations that show that for a city our size, we should not have 17 miles of unpaved roads in our city. The dust, the maintenance cost is actually more costly to maintain a dirt road than it is to maintain a paved road over that life. So we're needlessly spending money. The issue is, how do we pay for it? And that's something, again, that I've been working on since day one on the council, is trying to bring that together. We got the state legislature to approve a new bill last year that allows us to apply to the state for loans to go out and pave a road. That's never happened before. That's happened because of the work that we've done on City Council to bring that forward. We've had those conversations with the federal delegation. We're going through that process right now. So if you're in Ward 1 over the month of October, we're going to have another 3 meetings specifically to talk about what kind of streets do Ward 1 and Ward 2 members want, because this is also impacting 1st and 2nd Street as well as all of West Laramie. We're going to talk about what kind of street and drainage you want, and we're going to talk about how could we possibly pay for it. What could the city possibly pay? Are the residents willing to chip in? Do we go to the state? What does that look like, the whole package? And we're going to set a policy. My goal is to set a policy for the city to start including paving in West Laramie actually as part of our street building program. And then on top of that, everybody likes to talk about pavement, but it's really about drainage, because we have to address that before we put the pavement down.
No, you go next.
Okay. I think it's really important that everyone that wants a paved street has a paved street. And this is a big issue with the 6-penny tax. I think the key, with funding and financing, which is kind of the theme of the conversation tonight, is transparency. What amount of money are we going to spend on paving roads, and what's the process that we're going to use to allocate the money? The decisions that we make about infrastructure have to be sustainable in the long run. And I think that finding those alternative sources of revenue are really important. We need to look at applying for matching funds and make sure we're allocating funds from things like the fuel tax appropriately. In a perfect world, we could pay for all the projects. We could pay for street paving in West Laramie tomorrow. But I don't think we're there yet. And that's why I'm running, is because I want to get us there, which really goes back to the discussion about economic development. That is how we're going to support these type of projects. In the meantime, we need to come up with a really fair and transparent way to prioritize the needs of all the parties that are involved, and make sure that those efforts are supported by the community and not in support of any kind of political agenda.
So as a Ward 1 candidate, I think the rest of the candidates from Ward 1 would agree, this is the question you get asked over and over and over again. But I think you get that because it's significant, because it's been a long-standing issue with West Laramie that we need to address. The time is really now to take care of this. So, as you walk around neighborhoods as a candidate, knocking on doors, talking to people, it became abundantly clear how different everybody's opinion of what the road should look like in front of their house. Some people wanted the ribbon paving with ditches on the side and that sort of drainage. Some people wanted fully paved gutters and sidewalks. So I think these conversations coming up in October are going to be significant for charting what the future of West Laramie roads look like as we start to prioritize that as a city priority. So I think what's really important though is that everybody in Laramie deserves a safe and well-maintained road. I think that that's a basic quality of life thing that as a council we owe them. So, yeah.
Over the top to the front.
Sure.
It's all twisted up anyways.
Yes, I think every road in Laramie eventually needs to be paved, and we need to start implementing that plan immediately. Whether that's a block a year, a couple blocks a year, it starts, as Andy said, with drainage. We've got to get the drainage problems in West Laramie fixed first. We have areas out there, if we pave it, it's just going to be a paved lake. We don't have the drainage in West Laramie in a lot of locations to shed the water that we need to get rid of first. The topography is there. I think the city just needs the will to figure out where that drainage needs to go. But then after that drainage is fixed, or the plan is in place and the drainage has begun to be fixed, then we can start on a plan to, I don't know what the number's going to be. It depends on what the funding looks like. But if it's a block a year, if it's 2 blocks a year, or if it's 3 blocks a year, make that part of the long-term plan to upgrade the streets in West Laramie. But it's not just West Laramie. Again, it's an overall funding issue. The streets are bad in the tree area. The streets are bad downtown. Ivinson is just absolutely crazy bad in places. So it's a funding issue too, and the city needs to have that long-term plan to upgrade everything. And if it takes the next 20 or 30 years, so be it. It took. I went to grade school at Linford Elementary School in 6th grade, and we just got it paved.
Okay, we'll move down with this question to Carl. And again, the second part of the question is how will we pay for this?
I'm not quite sure what to say about this one, because this has been going on for so long. You got to remember that Foster's had 7 square blocks of West Laramie. The first street to ever get paved was on Adams Street, and Dick had to fight for 6 to 8 weeks for permission to pave it, because we had our own equipment and we were maintaining the roads ourselves with the trucks going in and out of there. And so it's always been a problem, and there were 3 votes in the 80s where people actually voted down taxing themselves to pay for 50% of the roads. And so until there's something that comes up that the voters themselves are willing to vote on, and the only people that voted on that were the people that were on the other side, that were in West Laramie. It was not like everybody voted. But I know my father-in-law voted twice out of the 3 times to vote yes. I never asked him about the 3rd one. But since even though he owned 7 blocks and Bob Blake probably had 9, they only got 1 vote. If it were done by land area, they probably could have passed the darn thing. But it's one of those things that is really a concern. And I'm talking citywide now, not just there, because there is some maintenance issues. But as far as raising the money, this is new money that has to be raised, and that's the reason why I'm bringing it up the way I am, is because this is something that needs to continue to be fixed. They did the first full block. When people ask about the first full block, the only question I ever say is, yeah, well, some of those companies could have afforded it themselves.
And since City Council is 1/3 West Laramie, where the streets are, where the unpaved streets are, I think a lot of people were worried with the 6 cent, not too worried, they voted for it, but people were worried that we're going to use all that money just for paving streets in West Laramie, and I think we'll have a balance. Some of them will be paved, and I think the ribbon paving is a good idea, but people have to be comfortable having the borrow ditches, because that's how you handle the drainage there. It's really, really expensive, it's my understanding from my husband who's studied it, and I know there have been a lot of studies, and every study shows it's really expensive. So you have to have some buy-in. We have to get grant money, and you know, see if the neighbors want to have that. But we can't spend all that money on West Laramie. It has to be used for the whole town, and since the way the wards are split up, I think that's assured with the work sessions that people can participate and see what's being approved and what the order is.
Thank you. We tried an experiment this year. We took a section of streets out in West Laramie. We took up road-milled asphalt from when we rebuilt some other streets. We laid it down, graded, and then ran a very heavy packer over it. It is the cheapest solution for trying to make a street better. When will we know the results? I'm going to guess probably 2 years to see how long it lasts. But we haven't talked about costs. If we put a full street in, curb and gutter and drainage, that's the most expensive. It is millions and millions of dollars per block. If we put the ribbon street in, it is still fairly expensive. It's almost $1 million a block. The road-milled asphalt was only a couple $100,000 per block. Out of these, talked about our 16 miles here, 11 of them are out in West Laramie. One of our biggest problems we have out there is a lot of people said, around Linford, they got their streets for free. And they did. The city paid for part of it, the Albany County School District paid for part of it, and the state paid for part of it, because it was a big outcry for that. Right now, if somebody builds a new subdivision, they must pay for the streets. Then they put the costs in each individual house of how many linear feet they have, and then when the house sells, that person paid for their streets. Thank you.
Okay, so when I was a little kid, I lived in West Laramie, and I went to Linford, and I used to represent Ward 1 when I was on the city council before. And I understand why this question comes up, and I got pretty comfortable talking to people out there about it. One of the things that I usually try to communicate to people was this issue of cost. And the last time I heard a full price quoted to me, and I'm sure it's more than that now, it was somewhere in the range of $40 million, and it's going to be more than that now. We have to pay as we go in terms of how we manage our infrastructure. Yes, we plan ahead, but we also have to plan as to how we're going to generate and use limited revenue. There are 9 members on City Council, and at least 5 of us have to agree on how money's going to be spent in general. And that process will be public and transparent and messy. But I'd ask people to remember that the last time we undertook a major paving project over there, all 9 members of the council did support it, which was to improve that infrastructure around Linford, and I don't regret that at all. And I think we all recognize on council that if you want to encourage things like business retention and population retention and economic growth, you have to have good quality services and paved streets. So we have to balance those concerns. It's a big price tag and it's an important problem. And at least 5 of us are going to have to agree on how we do that.
Okay, time for 2, perhaps 3 more questions, but definitely 2. And we'll start this one with Paul. And then we'll come, right after Paul, we'll come down to this end of the table and continue. A member of the audience has made this statement. Transportation, or lack of it, for the seniors, students, and low-income population is a major issue in Laramie. Do you agree or disagree? And if you agree, what are your ideas in solving it?
I do agree. And for the difficult part of the question, my ideas about solving it, it's going to require just a little bit of a history review. We had, a few years ago, a vote to try to provide some revenue towards the public transportation system. It didn't pass, but it was very close. I know that we recently had a public discussion here in Laramie with, I think, some sitting city council folks and candidates about this issue and some potential solutions to it. As always, there's this cost question that has to enter into the decision. I think it's a problem we can solve. I don't think we'll be able to address it 100%, but I think we have some potential partnerships with the university and some other possible partnerships for public transportation where we can at least try to get some sort of regular bus service or van service, or whatever you want to call it, over there at least some days a week. And I think that should be a goal, and that's something I'm certainly willing to work on and take a look at over the next 4 years. I don't know exactly what it'll look like, but I think it's important, and I can't outline for you exactly how we'll do it, but I think we have the resources that we need to try to address the problem, at least make a dent in it.
Yes, I definitely believe there's a problem with transportation in Laramie. We're kind of on a borderline between need and cost. I think there's a lot of opportunities for private businesses such as the Uber and Lyft to fill in some of that void. I think there's also a lot of opportunities out there, and maybe student organizations or things like that have provided some funding. Maybe there's some volunteer organizations potential out there for that. As far as how much we want to invest in public transportation as a city, I don't know the answer to that question. I know there's some partnership opportunities with the university, and their handicap transport is very effective and I think very useful. But I think we need to investigate all the different options when it comes to that transportation and see what's out there. And I think somewhere in the middle of that is a blend that will help alleviate some of our problems.
So I recently participated in the Transportation Summit that was held by Interfaith Good Samaritan. They were the main sponsor at the Hilton. And this issue is one that was important enough to fill the boardroom at the Hilton. So there is a lot of people interested in pursuing a solution to this problem, and it certainly is a problem. So, you know, the current bus system is almost entirely, any public transit, almost entirely provided by the university right now. And I would say happily by them, but they are maxed out. They can't provide any more public transit. So what we're gonna have to do is find creative solutions to this problem and figure out how we can use the pieces that we have in place now to provide more services. So whether that's pooling days of the weeks so that people from, an example, maybe the Timbers in West Laramie, so that those people that may need a run to Walmart to get groceries or a trip to Ivinson to go to the doctor, so that we can pool those trips so that everybody's going at the same time to save costs for the university and the city and to provide more opportunity for public transit. So thank you.
This is an issue that I would like 20 minutes on. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart. You know, I'm on the Age-Friendly Laramie Committee, and this is something that we talk about a lot, especially for seniors and people with disabilities, or you know, maybe that just don't have a car for whatever reason. People need a ride to get to work, and when you have people that have a good job, that's how you have a thriving community. People need a ride to get to their doctor's appointments to maintain their health. And that's something that the city, you know, needs to look into to support those things. Those are important indicators of quality of life. I was also at the Transportation Summit, and I thought I had a pretty good handle on transportation options in Laramie, but it's actually better than I thought it was. The university is amazing. Their dial-a-ride, the PATS bus through the Upson Center. I think there's a lot of resources out there, and without spending money on new resources, we can look at how we can kind of maximize the resources that we have. You know, if you have a bus that's bringing people from West Laramie at a certain amount of time, then they can get into the Laramie Link system. So you're not actually adding a new service or a new bus stop or anything like that. You're just allowing people to get to a hub where they can have more effective transportation throughout the rest of town. Thank you.
So I've spent quite a bit of time working with the Albany County Transportation Authority. We actually have one of those here that's currently dormant, mostly because it would be competing with the University of Wyoming for grants. And I want to be clear with everybody right now that the transportation that we do have, the Laramie Link that goes out in the community, Walmart and downtown, right now does not provide service to the West Side neighborhood or West Laramie, which is a huge, huge hole in the service that we have not been able to fill so far. But that service is paid basically entirely by ASUW student fees as well as YDOT grants. And so right now the city of Laramie contributes a big zero to public transportation. We used to contribute to ACTA, but when they went dormant, we stopped that contribution because they were no longer active. We need to, you know, I've had conversations with the university about this. It's very common in university towns to either have the university run the entire town's bus system or the town runs the university system. Right now, UW has the infrastructure to expand our transportation system. We don't need to hire new drivers, buy new buses, all of that stuff. They have the infrastructure available to do that. So what we need to be looking at is revenue commitments to be able to improve the service that we have. We also need to continue to expand and think outside of the box. Safe Ride is an amazing program that sprang out of a university idea that serves this entire community. We can continue to have those types of ideas. We also need to continue to cluster services together. So if somebody needs to go to the workforce center, and we need to make sure they can get to the doctor's office and the hospital all in the same area.
This issue's been here for a long, long time. I can actually remember people coming into my office, the seniors, and they had to take a cab. Problem is, we don't have the same cab service we used to. It's very difficult to get a cab. It's hard to get anything done. West Laramie and West Side are the two parts of town that are most underserved at this time. And right now, Arizona and Nevada are both using Ubers with no drivers to get people around, which I'm not going to say that would be great until we fix the roads. But but after the roads are fixed, I'm not going to say too much. I've just been, I've got just enough to it that I don't want to ride in one alone, but yet I think it has a lot of potential in the long run, which I couldn't have said 2-3 years ago. But we do need to get the funding taken care of, and the funding did not pass the last election, and that is a major issue. And luckily, every time they do try to do anything in West Laramie, there were various options for parking lots, but a lot of them are gone now. But they keep talking about the territorial prison, but that is quite a walk from the west side. It's quite a walk from West Laramie, so that's not. They need to work on it a lot. There needs to be a lot of meetings and talk among the council and whoever's doing the meetings. Senior Center.
The north side of town is also not served by public transportation except for the PATS bus. I think the university, it would be great if they could expand the north-south routes. I also wonder why Walmart can't kick in on the Laramie Link. When I see they're getting delivered customers right to their door, why can't we ask Walmart, Safeway, to contribute to public transportation since we're bringing them customers? Also, we have a lot of poverty in this town, in this county, like the highest childhood poverty rate in the state. So people need to get around with their kids. And so I think we should try to ask businesses to kick in. And I'm grateful for what the university does, but also I know the custodian at my building saw her working another shift that day at Walmart because the pay is pretty low at the bottom end of the scale. So we've got to address poverty too.
Thank you. I would really like to see a joint effort. We need to contribute into all of this. UW, the City of Laramie, the Senior Center, I agree, Walmart, Safeway, any big business that they're delivering to their doorstep, they should. When you go to any large community, and I know we're not a great big community, you go to Denver, you don't get to ride the bus for free. So we also need a little contribution from the citizens too. It would be great. It doesn't have to be a huge amount, but we're one of the few people, and it's great that you can jump on a bus and go across town and not pay anything, but it's the only place I've ever seen this happen. So, yes, do I think we need to share this? Yes, should the city be contributing? Yes, we should. I'd like to see a bigger bus route. I'd like to see all the above contribute too. You already talked. I did.
Okay, we're down to one last question here, and then we'll break, and you'll have 30 minutes to interact with the audience and answer any questions one-on-one. By the way, here are some of the topics that we did not get to. So you might get a little bit of a heads up, because folks might be asking you about this. And that is the beautification ordinance, the Pilot Hill land purchase, Laramie Municipal Court, the types of businesses that should be coming into Laramie, the League of Women Voters Campaign Integrity Pledge, and all of you would have passed tonight. You've done a great job. Trailers, and what are you guys going to do about the county commissioners? So here's the last question. Each of you will have a minute just to sum up anything you want to say or any kind of final word. 1 minute. And
Did you repeat all that?
What's that?
Could you repeat that?
Well, that's not the question.
Yeah, you have
That's
one.
what we didn't get
That's what we didn't get to.
Yeah, you each have 1 minute to sum up any final thoughts that you might have, and we'll start with Victor.
Yes, yes, no, maybe, okay.
No, not these questions. Not these questions. Anything you want to say?
Okay, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Public Library, and especially the people for coming out tonight. I think you listen to everybody up here. Everybody's got good ideas. We've got a lot of smart people looking to make Laramie better. It's going to take involvement from everybody, not just whoever gets on City Council. I'd love to see more involvement from everybody in the city. I think we can solve a lot of these problems out there with just a little willpower some of the more pressing problems like money and infrastructure are going to take a lot more work, but there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there in Laramie to improve our quality of life. Those things can be solved tomorrow with just willpower and buy-in. So I say go after the low-hanging fruit first while we work on the big picture problems. Thank you.
I would like to echo his thank yous to the League of Women Voters, to the Public Library, and to all of you, as well as all my fellow candidates. I think it's clear after this evening that Laramie has some big decisions on the horizon. Decisions about our clean water source, about providing for the next generation, and about how we stay competitive in a quickly changing world. These decisions won't be made through partisanship. These are decisions that can provide an optimistic future for Laramie if, collectively, we take bold strides together and that we find creative solutions to these complex problems. I love Laramie. This is where I started my business. It's where I met my wife. It's where I volunteer, and I think most importantly, it's where I chose to call home. Running for office is incredibly hard, and I really couldn't do this without the support of my community. And so really, I look forward to earning all of your votes. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters, not just for tonight, but everything that you guys do to make sure that the public is informed. Campaigning, as Brian said, is difficult, but I am so humbled to have had the experiences so far in campaigning and just met so many awesome Laramie residents that I would not have met earlier. And I just want to take a minute to talk about my vision for what Laramie looks like, in 5 years or 10 years. I see a city that can overcome these problems, that can take care of its citizens and its employees. And I see a city that draws people to call it home and it welcomes tourism. I see a city where local businesses can thrive and families can feel safe and prosperous. And I see a city that, in the future, if we do this right and we focus on economic development, can be financially self-sustaining. That's the city that I see for my son and for everyone else that calls Laramie home.
So tonight, I hope I've done a good job of trying to talk about what I think I've actually worked on and accomplished during the last 5 years that I've been on City Council, because I think that's pretty important. I think that I echo all of what Ms. Stelter has said for the vision, but I believe that all of that is already here in Laramie. And our challenge is to keep that while we kind of grow out of these awkward teenage years of a 35,000 person community and closer to that 40 or 50,000 person community that has a few more amenities and a few more people to it. And we're just in that stage. We have so much opportunity to continue to keep everything that we love about Laramie, for why most of us have been here for a long time. It's why I've been here. I was one of those crazy college students that showed up and then forgot to leave. That was about 20 years ago almost now. And that's why my husband and I are raising our kids here, because of all the things that everybody up here has said about why we love Laramie. I am willing to dig in and work, and I think my record reflects how hard I'm willing to work, and I want to continue that with everybody.
Okay, I do want to thank the League of Women Voters. I think the first time I went to one of these was 1984, and I lost to Jerry Meyer by 109 votes for the legislature, okay? But they've always been very non-biased, and they do not endorse or anything like that, and that's great. One of the things I wanted to point out was cities have problems forever, and it's going to continue having problems forever. Example would be Monolith Ranch. That's why it was bought, for the water. My father-in-law was on there. There was a lawsuit over it. It was an absolute disaster. Right now, one of our problems is city county, which you happen to mention. And I think that was actually fairly solvable with just a few meetings and some recognition of what who has what power and no overstepping. Yeah, I think that could work out.
I'd also like to thank the League. We have I think there are some low-cost things we can do to promote our town, and one of the things that I think about is that this is kind of a mecca for the real hardcore athletes that can ride bicycles up mountains and things like that, like the guys that I see all winter long riding up while I'm driving up to Pole Mountain. So I think with the Pilot Hill purchase, we could really promote getting people to come to Laramie as the place where really the cool kids come to recreate and compete. And I think a low-cost thing we could do is through social media promote our town and let people know that there's a downtown when they come to the games. And we could use the social media to improve recycling by just educating people.
Thank you. All the ideas have been great tonight. You just wish you could do this. One of the biggest things you'll find out when you get on council, since I'm running for my 4th term, is you are one of 9. And it was stated earlier, if you don't have 4 other people besides yourself that will support you in your idea, it might be the best idea in the world. So one of the things you have to do is you have to gain support. The low-cost items, they're great, but again, you've got to gain support. We have contributed a huge amount of people hours towards Pilot Hill. It's going to help our clean drinking water out of the aquifer. Tri-Hydro donated $100,000, and we've donated people support. We need to step up to the plate.
We're lucky to have these forums. The candidates are lucky to have an organization that, puts this together for us. And we're lucky enough in Laramie to have engaged citizens that show up over and over again to hear the different candidates for this office and that office, and it's important, and I really appreciate it. I find myself wishing that we could have a city council with 13 people on it, because there's been a lot of good ideas. But I also want to say this. We've talked about a huge range of topics tonight, and the primary forum, same thing. If we all do a really, really good job, we might scratch the surface on some of them in 4 years, and we just have to be realistic about that. I'll give you one specific thing I want to focus on: making it easier to redevelop dormant commercial areas that have been in Laramie without anything going on for a number of years. I think we can remove some barriers there, make those more attractive to people that might have some dollars to invest in them, and improve our community.
Thank you. This was a very good forum tonight, and I hope that the audience enjoyed it as much as I did. You took these, yes, please do. You took all the questions seriously. You offered informed and thoughtful responses to it, and probably more than anything else, it showed how every one of you cares very deeply about our community. Over the years, I've watched the quality of the council go up and down. It's good right now. And regardless of the outcome of the election in 5 weeks, and looking at all of our candidates who are here tonight, I think it's going to maintain that high quality and be a real benefit to the city of Laramie. So thank you for running, thank you for being here, and good luck over the next 5 weeks. And the person who's going to have the final word is Nancy Lockwood.
Thank you, Mike. I want to reiterate thank you to the audience, thank you to our candidates. I want to actually point out a special thanks to one of our league members who's doing the worst job in the world, I think, is Matt Link over here. Watching. I couldn't get up in the morning tomorrow if I was doing what you were doing. Also, a little housekeeping. We need to put away the chairs and the tables. One is a request from the library to return it to the state it was in. 2, it makes it much more easier for you to mingle with each other and the candidates if we don't have chairs all in the way. So this back closet here has stackers. You can put 20 chairs per cart, chair stacker cart, And then they asked that we leave 15 chairs up, and if you just leave them up around the front area, we're going to put them in a little semicircle up here at front. The tables also go back in that closet, and you have to do this strategically, because once you got the chairs in, it's really hard to get the tables in, so tables go first. And I hope to see you here on the upcoming Thursday nights as well for the rest of our forums. Thank you.